Surviving the brutal Arctic is no casual achievement. With temperatures dropping as low as -84 degrees Fahrenheit and barely 2 to 4 hours of daylight, the Inuit didn't just endure. They mastered survival in a place most would find uninhabitable. For them, it wasn't simply about braving winter, it was about understanding and working with a land that offers no second chances. So, how did they manage it? While others would falter in such extremes, the Inuit thrived by leaning on an intricate knowledge of both terrain and water. Hunting and fishing weren't just survival strategies, they were deeply embedded in their culture. And when it came to ice fishing, their techniques were as efficient as they were innovative. Forget sonar and powered gear. This was pure human instinct. Rather than punching random holes across frozen lakes, Inuit fishers focused on known hotspots, like underwater shelves, deep pockets, or current paths, where fish naturally gathered. Picking the right site could mean the difference between feeding a family or returning empty-handed. Without powered augers, they turned to a toque, a hand-forged ice chisel, capable of breaking through ice as thick as 6 feet. But instead of hacking out large openings, they kept things tight, chiseling holes about 8 to 10 inches wide. That precision wasn't just practical, it was survival smart. Smaller holes meant less heat loss, slower refreezing, and greater efficiency in the punishing cold. Most people don't realize that even in the Arctic's frozen depths, fish remain surprisingly active. Unlike land animals that hibernate during the cold months, fish continue swimming at nearly 80% of their usual pace. This made them a reliable food source all winter long, and the Inuit were experts at timing their catch. By tracking tidal movements and moon phases, they pinpointed the most fruitful fishing windows with remarkable accuracy. A single, well-positioned hole in the ice could feed an entire family for a week. One prized catch was the Arctic char, a fish rich in nutrients and energy. Weighing in at around 1,000 calories per pound, it also delivered vital omega-3 fatty acids and vitamin D, crucial for Inuit communities during the long, dark months with minimal sunlight. The tools they used were both resourceful and effective. Instead of metal, they fashioned gorge hooks from carved bone or ivory, tied to sinew lines. These hooks didn't rely on barbs. Instead, once swallowed, they would rotate inside the fish's throat, making escape impossible. Many Inuit elders believe these ancient hooks outperformed modern steel versions, and they never rusted if lost in the ice. Fishing was a communal operation. Some members tended the fishing holes, while others stayed warm in shelters, rotating shifts to check for bites. The best fishing locations were carefully guarded family secrets, passed down like heirlooms. In an environment where temperatures could fall to -84 degrees Fahrenheit, finding fish wasn't just a skill, it was a lifeline. Living through an Arctic winter meant knowing how to stretch every catch and preserve every ounce. Hunting and fishing provided food, but long-term survival depended on clever storage. The Inuit turned their frozen world into nature's freezer, but with a twist. Even cold couldn't protect them from everything. Polar bears posed one of the biggest threats. These giant predators could detect the scent of meat from miles away. So, the Inuit went beyond freezing. They turned to fermentation and drying, developing food preservation methods that were both advanced and efficient. One of the most fascinating examples is iguanak, a fermented walrus meat delicacy. Large cuts of meat were packed inside sealskin bags, then buried under stones and left to ferment for weeks or even months. The flavor might seem strong to modern tastes, but iguanak offered a reliable source of high-energy food during the leanest times of year. They didn't stop there. Dried fish eggs, preserved berries, and thin-sliced meats were also key. Even at sub-zero temperatures, they dried meat in the open air, transforming it into jerky that could last for months. This not only prevented spoilage, but made for compact, lightweight meals, perfect for long hunting trips or emergencies. Preserving food was a family effort. Everyone helped, slicing, drying, storing, and protecting what they'd gathered. Ideal storage sites had to strike a balance, far enough from curious predators, but close enough to reach in whiteout conditions. As one elder joked, ours was the original walk-in freezer, except you had to make sure it wasn't already occupied by a bear. Fishing and food preservation laid the groundwork for surviving the Arctic, but for long-term sustainability, hunting was absolutely vital. A single caribou could yield over 150 pounds of meat, supplying enough nourishment to feed a family for several weeks. But in an environment of unending snow, freezing winds, and long stretches of darkness, the hunt was far from easy. It demanded far more than physical strength. It required a deep intuitive connection with the land. The Inuit honed their tracking abilities to an extraordinary degree. They could read the snow like a map, distinguishing fresh hoof prints from old ones, estimating the age and size of a caribou based on gait and depth, and even detecting subtle signs where lichen had been grazed or snow overturned by foraging. They didn't just follow animals, they predicted their next move. This foresight often spelled the difference between a full belly and empty stomach. Yet, the Inuit didn't limit their focus to large prey. Smaller animals played a crucial role in Arctic survival, particularly the Arctic fox. Known for its elusive and nocturnal behavior, this predator was hunted for both its meat and fur, which was incredibly valuable in insulating clothing and bedding. Inuit hunters would craft trap lines consisting of 20 to 30 carefully placed traps along game trails. Baited with frozen seal meat, these traps could yield 1 fox for every 5 set, an efficient method that demanded little maintenance but provided consistent returns. Even the tiniest creatures were not overlooked. Take the ptarmigan, a white-feathered bird that blends almost invisibly into the snowy backdrop. These birds dig shallow burrows in snowbanks at night to conserve warmth, leaving behind tiny breathing holes. To the untrained eye, these are practically invisible. But Inuit hunters, trained from childhood to read the land, spotted these signs with ease. Using small snares or nets, they would capture ptarmigans by stealth, turning an almost impossible task into a dependable food source. None of this would have been possible without the right tools, and the Inuit created some of the most resilient and functional hunting equipment in the world. Chief among these was the kamutik, a traditional sled built not from modern materials, but from driftwood, animal bones, and sinew bindings. The kamutik was designed to glide over uneven, icy terrain while carrying heavy loads of meat and supplies. Unlike modern sleds with mechanical parts that could break in extreme cold, the kamutik could be repaired on the go using basic materials. It was low-tech, but it was genius. While many hunting techniques were grounded in movement and tracking, some required absolute stillness, especially seal hunting, which demanded not just skill but patience bordering on the superhuman. As we'll see next, hunting a seal in the depths of Arctic winter was one of the most challenging and rewarding tasks a hunter could undertake. To the Inuit, hunting seals was never just about food. It was about survival at its most elemental level. Seals offered meat, blubber, oil, hide, and even bones, each playing a crucial role in daily life. The meat was rich in protein, the blubber rendered into fuel for lamps and cooking, and the skins fashioned into waterproof clothing or used to insulate shelters. A single-ringed seal could weigh over 100 pounds, yielding 50 pounds of blubber, a vital store of energy during the long, dark months. But hunting these marine mammals in the heart of winter demanded a unique set of skills. Unlike caribou, which could be tracked on land, seals had to be located beneath thick sheets of ice. During the coldest months, they kept several breathing holes open, each no wider than a dinner plate, carefully maintained and nearly invisible under snow. Finding these holes was half the battle. Inuit hunters would scan the ice for signs invisible to the average eye, a soft depression, a hairline crack, or the faint exhale of warm air rising through the snow. These clues hinted at a breathing hole beneath. Once a spot was identified, the real test began. The hunter would lie in absolute stillness beside the hole, often in temperatures plunging below -50 degrees Fahrenheit. Wrapped in caribou hide and lying motionless for 3 to 4 hours, the hunter waited. To detect the moment a seal surfaced to breathe, a fine strip of polar bear fur was placed over the hole. When the seal exhaled, the fur would stir, barely perceptible but unmistakable to the trained eye. At that precise moment, the hunter struck with a harpoon called an unar. The harpoon was an engineering marvel. It featured a detachable toggle head connected by a sinew rope to the shaft. Upon impact, the head rotated beneath the seal's skin, securing the animal. The wooden shaft, meanwhile, floated freely on the surface, preventing it from disappearing into the icy abyss. It was a system perfected over generations. One shot, no second chances. The nutritional rewards were staggering. Seal meat delivered about 1,200 calories per pound, while blubber offered an astonishing 4,000 calories per pound. Critical in an environment where the human body might burn as many as 6,000 calories daily just to stay warm. Even the liver, rich in vitamin C, helped prevent scurvy when fruits and vegetables were unavailable for months. Most remarkable of all, nothing was ever wasted. The skin was sewn into parkas or tents. The oil was stored in soapstone lamps to provide heat and light. Bones were repurposed into tools and weapons. In a world of scarcity, Inuit hunters found abundance in a single seal, and they honored that life by using every part. In the Arctic, every resource mattered. For the Inuit, survival wasn't just about finding food. It was about using all of it. Nothing went to waste. One of the most underrated nutritional lifelines: bone marrow. While modern societies throw away nearly 40% of their edible food, the Inuit developed techniques to extract value from every last part of an animal. In fact, what science now calls a superfood, the Inuit simply saw as good sense. Bone marrow wasn't just a filler food. It was one of nature's most concentrated sources of energy and nutrition. Modern dietitians call it a natural multivitamin wrapped in calcium, and the Inuit knew its power long before lab tests confirmed it. They had two primary sources: caribou and seals. From caribou, they harvested marrow from large leg bones, which could deliver up to 400 calories each. As much energy as a chicken breast, but in far less volume. This dense nutrition made it ideal for long journeys or periods when hunting was impossible. Seal bones, though smaller, were packed with iron, vitamin A, and other nutrients essential for braving the harsh cold and fighting off fatigue. But extraction wasn't easy. The moment an animal was butchered, the Arctic air would freeze the bones nearly solid. Instead of being discouraged, the Inuit used this to their advantage. With sharpened stone tools, they struck bones at specific pressure points, causing them to fracture cleanly. This allowed them to retrieve solid, intact pieces of marrow without waste or mess. An elder once joked that marrow was nature's popsicle, though it's unlikely that flavor will ever trend in ice cream shops. But the name stuck. It was both nutritious and portable, and kids learned to eat it just as they would any familiar snack. From a nutritional standpoint, marrow was a powerhouse. Composed of about 84% fat, it offered massive caloric payoff, perfect for a region where the human body might burn 5,000 to 6,000 calories per day just to stay warm. It was also rich in collagen, conjugated linoleic acid, and essential omega fatty acids, all of which supported joint health, immunity, and inflammation control. Critical benefits when even minor injuries or infections could turn deadly in sub-zero isolation. Storing marrow was as important as collecting it. The Inuit constructed natural freezers, caching bones in deep snowbanks and marking the locations carefully. These sites served as emergency pantries during storms, sickness, or long hunting gaps. In times when no fresh food was available, these caches often made the difference between sustenance and starvation. But what truly defined Inuit survival wasn't just ingenuity. It was their unwavering sense of community. Food wasn't hoarded or hidden. It was shared. It didn't matter who made the kill. What mattered was that no one went without. In an environment where the land offered so little, the people gave everything they could to one another. Survival in the Arctic wasn't a solo accomplishment. It was a collective mission. The Inuit lived by a powerful principle known as ingenious, a structured, time-tested system of food distribution built not on charity, but on strategy. It ensured that even when the hunt was scarce or unpredictable, no one was left hungry. Picture a hunter taking down a 1,000-pound walrus. It would be impossible and unwise for one family to try to consume or preserve all of it before it spoiled. But Ningiktuk wasn't just about practicality. It was about reinforcing social bonds, ensuring long-term resilience, and building a support system that made sure no one faced the cold alone. The distribution wasn't random. It followed an organized framework. Elders received the best cuts, both out of respect and necessity. Their survival preserved knowledge. Families in need were given larger shares. Skilled hunters often took less, confident in their ability to succeed again. It was a system that prioritized community over ego. As one elder explained, you don't own a kill, you share its blessing. Perhaps the most profound lesson came during a young hunter's first successful kill. Tradition dictated they give all of it away. Every bite, every cut. The reward wasn't meat, it was trust. It showed the community that the young hunter understood their role not just as a provider for themselves, but as a protector of the group. In return, they secured a place in the communal safety net, knowing that when their own luck ran dry, help would come. This wasn't just a tradition, it was a survival tactic. Hunting in the Arctic is unpredictable. One day, you might return with seals, birds, and caribou. The next, you might return empty-handed. Ningiktuk balanced these ups and downs, ensuring that no household ever went days without food, regardless of personal hunting success. It also had another benefit: reducing waste. Large kills couldn't be stored by one family alone, even with drying and caching techniques. Quick distribution meant meat was eaten or preserved efficiently, rather than rotting unused. In a land where every calorie counts, nothing could afford to go bad. Even information was shared. While some hunters did guard prime trapping areas or secret fishing holes, many exchanged insights freely. Tips about migrating herds, shifting ice patterns, or changing fish behavior. It wasn't about hoarding opportunity, it was about multiplying it. In the Arctic, individual success didn't matter if the community failed. What made Inuit society so uniquely resilient wasn't just their technology, their tracking skill, or their creativity. It was their commitment to one another. In a world where isolation could be lethal, connection was their most important survival tool. As one elder put it simply, the land gave us little, so we gave each other everything. What gave Inuit hunters an edge wasn't just skill. It was the smart use of tools built to outlast the Arctic. In sub-zero temperatures where steel could snap, they depended on lightweight, purpose-built gear. Rather than lugging 75 pounds of modern equipment, Inuit hunters carried closer to 35 pounds, each item chosen for necessity over convenience. The ulu, a crescent-shaped blade made from slate or traded metals, was one of their most relied-on tools. It handled everything, from slicing seal meat and scraping hides to shaping snow for shelters. Its curved design offered a unique balance of force and finesse. Harpoons were equally refined. Their barbless, detachable heads lodged securely in seals, while the buoyant shafts stayed above water for easy recovery. Compact and modular, they were simple to pack and reassemble mid-hunt. To traverse ice fields, they used the kamutik, a sled made from driftwood, animal bones, and sinew lashings. Instead of rigid parts that could fracture, it flexed with the terrain. Its design allowed on-the-go fixes without tools or hardware. Even their bows were adapted to the elements. Reinforced with bone and sinew, they resisted cracking and stayed responsive, making them dependable even when the cold turned wood brittle. But in the end, their real strength wasn't in tools. It was in reading nature itself. Intuition and awareness were what truly made survival possible. To the Inuit, nature wasn't passive. It was an active guide. Their ability to anticipate weather days ahead came not from instruments, but by watching subtle cloud patterns, shifting winds, and animal movements. insights built through generations of close observation. Their snow vocabulary alone reflected deep understanding. With more than 50 specific terms, they identified snow types by how they affected daily life. Mataruti meant moist, compact snow, ideal for building strong snow blocks. Pinato referred to thin, wind-hardened snow, great for directing herds during hunts. These words weren't poetic, they were practical, used to plan movement and shelter with razor-sharp accuracy. In complete darkness, they still tracked animals with precision. The feel of snow drifting across skin, or the way sound echoed through frozen silence, gave clues about direction, wind, and nearby game. They also noted how pressure changes affected animal routes, seals drawn to new breathing holes, or caribou shifting paths based on snow texture. This ability to interpret natural signs, even in the most unforgiving conditions, is what kept them alive. As an elder once said, "You don't just live on the land, you listen to it." For the Inuit, survival in the Arctic was never just about braving the cold. It was a reflection of their deep relationship with the land, their ingenuity, and a culture rooted in unity. Their resilience didn't stem from chance, but from generations of carefully honed practices and a lifestyle shaped by necessity and understanding. They learned to track animals through darkness, interpreting the faintest signs in snow and sky. Their methods of preserving food were so effective that they could endure months without fresh game. And when modern gear might freeze or break, their handmade tools, crafted from bone, stone, and sinew, continued to function flawlessly. Yet, what truly set them apart was how they lived together. Through systems like Ninjiktuk, food wasn't hoarded, it was distributed with purpose. Knowledge and experience weren't kept to oneself, but passed down and shared, creating a foundation where the survival of one meant the survival of all. These weren't acts of generosity, they were practical responses to a harsh environment. Cooperation wasn't optional, it was essential. Every shared meal, every passed down skill, reinforced a social structure that prioritized community over self-interest. Even now, their ways are studied by survivalists and scholars seeking to understand how human beings can not only endure, but thrive in the planet's most extreme climates. What outsiders view as inhospitable, the Inuit embraced as home. Through wisdom, adaptability, and collective strength, they transformed the Arctic from a place of danger into one of deep belonging and mastery.